Nickelodeon was the home of many beloved childhood shows of mine. In memory, they were all great. We had shows like The Fairly Odd Parents, Avatar, Danny Phantom, and oh so many, many more. Honestly, looking back, I can never possibly understand how I had so much time to watch all these different shows while also feeding my ever-growing Lego addiction at the time. Anyway, one of the most iconic shows to ever run on Nickelodeon happens to still be airing to this very day. I'm sure we all know which show that would be. Well, it's no surprise. You saw the title and the thumbnail of this video, and that's right, it's Spongebob Squarepants. Is it just me, or was SpongeBob just a really strange show to watch while growing up? For the 3 people out there that don't recognize this goofy yellow sponge guy, SpongeBob SquarePants originally aired all the way back in 1999 and currently has 13 seasons over its 2 decades of being on air. It's set underwater in a town called Bikini Bottom, which is home to the titular character of SpongeBob SquarePants. I guess because he's a sponge, Bob happens to be a name. He has very square-like features, and he wears pants. So I guess the name fits quite nicely. Like many other cartoons, this show doesn't really follow any sort of particular overarching plotline. It's mostly about SpongeBob, his various friends, and how he balances general life with his cooking job at the Krusty Krab. Yes, there is a little bit of conflict when it comes to the rival restaurant owner Plankton, but honestly, a lot of his schemes feel pretty half-baked at best. Now, I will have to admit that this show is definitely beloved by many, but hey, I gotta be honest. Sometimes, some of the jokes made in this show were outright bizarre and even terrifying, especially for a young audience. The episode in particular that comes to mind is I Had an Accident. I'm sure we can all guess what happens during this episode. SpongeBob, Sandy, and Patrick are all out sledding? Clam boarding? Wait. Let me look up what the heck this is called. So according to the ever so trustful Wikipedia, they were all out sandboarding. Cool, let's go with that. So the gang was out sandboarding and SpongeBob happens to get seriously injured. So injured that he becomes traumatized, and this causes him to want to permanently stay at home all day with his 3 new, definitely not inanimate object, friends. We can let him introduce you guys to his new friends.
I won't be lonesome. I've got all the friends I need right here. This is Penny. And Chip. And say hello to Used Napkin.
For the remainder of the episode, Sandy and Patrick do their very best to try to get SpongeBob to leave his house by trying to remind him just how fun it is to be outside. After several unsuccessful attempts at this, they give up and decide to scare him into going outside. In hindsight, this is kind of a strange plan. The whole issue is that he's aware that the outside is dangerous and refuses to risk his own life. So his friend's last plan is to pretend as if Sandy is in danger for being outside. Kind of sounds like it's just going to fuel his problems even more. But you know, cartoon logic, I guess. Anyway, the real plot twist is that a second Patrick appears, and turns out it's an actual gorilla dressed in a Patrick costume, who then proceeds to stuff Sandy and Patrick into a bag and starts to rough them up a little bit. Then SpongeBob eventually comes out of his house only to be ripped in half by said gorilla. The episode ends with the gorilla being called out for being underwater, and he rides away on his black and white spotted horse into the sunset, never to be seen again. Let's just ignore how absolutely absurd the story is for a moment. When I was a kid, this episode literally scarred me. I would have dreams of gorillas and zebra-looking horses appearing to me and cramming me into a bag, just to toss me around, just like what happened to Sandy and Patrick. What an act of imagination. But here's the thing. That's just the one part of the episode that little me decided to fixate on. I rewatched the episode before making this video, and truthfully, all I can say is that SpongeBob is one heck of a strange show. I'm just going to ignore the fact that SpongeBob can seemingly shapeshift and grow 2 extra legs without being questioned by literally anybody. Let's just call this cartoon physics, or the cowardly dog effect. This episode is full of really strange and bizarre moments, such as the moment when SpongeBob gets injured. His lower half quite literally shatters into pieces, and those pieces are launched in all directions, one of which ends up damaging Sandy's helmet. Am I the only one concerned that water should be getting into her helmet and slowly drowning her? Yes? Just me? Cool. While we're at it, I guess we can just forget about this horrific image of SpongeBob shattering into pieces. I'm sure that's a non-issue as well, especially for young, impressionable kids. The next comedic bit is definitely just in the spirit of being random and therefore funny for the kids, but it's definitely worth pointing it out. When watching this, should any of us be a little bit freaked out that there's randomly a 7-mile spanking machine worth of people? No? What about when Squidward approaches them and shows an interest? Should I be concerned that Squidward is acting like a grade A masochist in this very moment? Or should I feel bad for him that this is probably one of the few ways to get any amount of emotion out of his poor soul, besides anger directed towards SpongeBob? Anyway, I don't really care that much about Squidward, even though he's the depressed guy working a dead-end job. He's probably the most relatable person in the entire show, to anyone above the age of 16 anyway. Whatever, Squidward do be Squidward, after all. Either way, I wanted to make this video just to finally talk about my own gorilla trauma. But it just made me realize that SpongeBob is a really, really weird show in general. But this impression is only really based on the one episode that I remembered after all these years. Maybe others are better, or dare I imagine, even stranger. If you're interested in hearing my thoughts on another episode, then be sure to leave a comment down below. This video was definitely a random departure from what I usually make, so don't worry about it. I'll be back to the anime content from, hopefully, next week onwards. See you later.